So everyone hopefully will grab the green folder. You can't keep the folder, but I can tell you that there's a file on our Volsync page, Student Business Services Volsync, that says complete training information or folders to that effect. And it's literally all these documents in the exact same order. So it's there and available for you. And I'm just going to real quickly mention here that as you open the first set of pages, there's a contact information page. It's useful if you've got people that need to reach out and get some help with stuff. It's a lot geared towards other student organizations and not so much sports clubs, but there's still maybe some useful information there. Training schedule. So this is that general one, not the ones geared towards sports clubs. The travel on here does not count as your sports club travel because it doesn't deal with sports clubs at all. But these other financial officer ones, if there's people that from your clubs that aren't here today, they can come to one of these other ones on this trainings list, and it'll count for the requirement to be here and be trained. So, and I'll get back to that as we go. So, our office exists to work with the financial officers of A&S funded organizations to give you access to your budgets. By the way, for the people in the back, I think we had a couple people leave, so there's now chairs. So come on down, grab a seat, sir. Get comfortable. The jokes are funnier when you're sitting. We highly recommend that every A&S funded organization have 2 financial officers. The idea is even if your treasurer is going to do all the requests, have that second person with the access, because look, your lives are busy. You all have school, you all have family commitments, friend commitments, commitments to your team. I'm sure most of you have a job and work, probably some of you have multiple jobs. Then we all get sick from time to time. There's going to be times when you can't put your request in, have someone else that can do it, because you got to hit those deadlines. To be a financial officer, by the way, you've got to come to a training session. You can only do it for one organization at a time, and you've got to be on the board of your club. So you got to be a board member. Those are just the requirements. So I just want to mention that there's going to be a budget deadline coming up in November for sports clubs, for you to get the budget. We go on a fiscal year. Our year goes July 1st to June 30th. Come November, you're going to have to put in a budget request to the Sports Club Council that'll go from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, which sounds like it's a long way off, but it's going to be here before you know it. There's something called interim funding. Interim funding really applies to 3 scenarios. Scenario 1 would be a new sports club, or a club that just doesn't have annual funding maybe because you missed the deadline. That's a way to get funding for the year. You can only ask for that type of interim funding once, and if you already have annual funding, you can't ask for it at all. Scenario 2, because you guys go out and win big, you can ask for additional funding because you made the postseason for your sport. That's a very viable reason to ask for more money, because you don't have to budget out thinking, well, what if we make it to the championship and hold money back, and then all of a sudden get to the point where if you don't make the championship, you're sitting on money you can't use. The next scenario, to replace equipment from an unexpected loss. So my example is something like Hurricane Irma destroys a soccer goal. Something like that where you can't plan for a hurricane. If it comes in and destroys your equipment, you can ask for interim funding to replace stuff that got destroyed or unexpectedly, you need now. Funding's never retroactive. We can't pay for stuff in the past. The Sports Club Council should be doing budget workshops to help you do your budget application right around the time that's due. And I want to mention all of our resources are here on our Volsync page, which is our finance code, our student governance finance code, all of the purchasing forms, and the step-by-step instructions, basically that green folder you have in front of you. You can find the contents on our Volsync page. And I want to mention one thing that really is sort of a combination of purchasing and travel. And in all my years here, it had never become an issue until last year. And it killed me that it did. And so I want to say this now. As of this moment, student government statutes limit the total amount of money you can spend on travel for a year of A&S funds at $10,000 per club. We had a club that spent their $10,000 in the regular season that made the championship and got actually interim funding for it. And they couldn't spend it on travel because they hit their limit in student government statutes. So I don't control those statutes. I know there was appeal to update that. It hasn't been done yet. I don't know if it's still ongoing. I honestly don't know where that's at. But that's something you gotta keep in mind, is that if you're in danger of spending $10,000 on travel throughout the year, literally once you hit that mark, the funding stops for travel. Whatever's in your budget can be spent on purchasing stuff, but not travel. Yes.
So if our budget is less than 10,000, obviously, and we need it to do like a national competition or whatever, then could we ask for more if we run through the funded travel that we were allotted in the beginning?
No, so the 10,000 isn't like saying that you're due 10,000 in travel. That 10,000 is just saying you can't spend more than that on travel if your budget has that money. But if your club makes its championship and gets interim funding to go to the championship, that extra money you get is counted with whatever you spend throughout the year. And that 10,000 is a stopping point on travel expenses for the year, no matter whether the money came from the annual process or the interim process. So, want to mention that a lot of your teams have coaches, and a lot of them, are volunteers. But there is an opportunity that if you wish to use some A&S funds to compensate those coaches for a little bit of their time and expenses that they spend with their team, that is possible. As far as dealing with our office goes, it starts off the exact same way as any other purchase request. You've got to give us a request first in the FAST system, which you're going to see in a few minutes, to do the background check that's required of any of your coaches, whether volunteer or paid, by the way. That part is true of all coaches. Then you've got to plan out a budget of what you want to pay the coaches out of your A&S funds if you wish to pay them, and submit a purchase request asking for the coach to be paid that money for their work with your team. The payment will come at the end of the semester. If it comes earlier, great, but plan for it to be at the end of the semester. Max of $5,000 per fiscal year. And here's the important thing. That coach really shouldn't be out on the field or wherever you're competing or practicing with your team until you get clearance from Campus Rec. So that's the indicator that they're good to be out there. Because if for some reason they don't get cleared or don't get approved, you don't want them out there working where they think they're going to be earning some money to only find out that they can't earn that money. So, question?
It might be a question more for you. I'm not sure. The actual volunteer coach form, is it up on Volsync currently, or?
I can double check, but it should be. I believe we uploaded it because it's the same as last year, so it should be the same form.
So there's actually a link that I found off of Volsync that has the whole form. Is that still? Did it change from
No,
last year?
the form. So last year we got the form completely approved, and it got approved again this year, so it's the exact same form.
And is it supposed to be printed out, or can it be submitted online?
It can be submitted online.
Okay.
So, so what you'll do is you'll submit it to our office. Remember, Chris Newsom's not here. Either Dan or myself is probably the best person for handling coaches. And then from there, we will initiate that process. So everyone has to go through that volunteer process, and then, like Mike said, there's some different levels of background checks, but we'll guide you through that. I did want to make one thing about the money that goes to the coaches. They are going to receive a lump sum this year, and we started that process last year, which means that if you, let's say you tell them you're going to pay them $3,000, they are not going to get the full $3,000. They still pay taxes on this, so the actual check that they'll receive, so let's say $3,000 is a round number on that one. $3,000, they'll probably get around $2,100 to $2,200. Okay? So just be aware that you know this information when you're talking with your coaches, that they are taxed just like anybody else. So when you say you're going to pay them $3,000, the university is stroking a check, and you are losing $3,000 out of the club's account. The individual receiving it is only going to get roughly that amount.
Question, yes.
I have a quick question, it's kind of off topic, but the financial officer and travel trainings,
Yes.
Is this the same thing that we're going over now, or we have to go to this as well?
No, you don't have to go to that as well. So the part I'm doing right now actually doesn't appear in any of that. And that the one travel training that's still upcoming on that schedule is definitely not a go for a sports club. It's nothing to do with sports clubs at all. That's about getting a grant for a student organization to go to a conference. So please don't send anyone to that. The other financial officer trainings are an acceptable substitution for people who aren't here today. But the fact that you're here, you're good. So that's more for you to come and share with like a team member that should have been here today, but is instead, I don't know, at the beach. I mean, hard at work. Yes.
And also something off topic, back to the travel roster real quick.
Yeah.
It's like, so in the old Bullsing, it used to like have a form and you can download the whole Excel and you can do it. And in the new Bullsing, is it already up there or?
So
Because I didn't find any.
So the travel piece is up in the new BullSync, right? And that's not on our BullSync page, not Student Business Services, but on the Sports Club officer page, correct?
Yes, so on the sport club, so everything is on the sport club's main page, so the sport club's page, it's up, that form is also on the officer's page, but I'm gonna direct you to this, the main portal, to make life simple, and it's not a form. If you're looking under form, you'll never find it under there. It is a document, because it's an Excel file that's downloadable. The documents, if you just scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see all the documents, and the travel form is on the top.
Okay, we're gonna talk about the USF logo real quick. So, believe it or not, there's a cool perk that you all have that no other of these 600 plus student organizations at USF have. You guys are the only student organizations that are allowed to use any USF logos at all. Yeah, and you're able to use this logo right here, and there's basically 4 colors that can be a combination of: white, black, green, and gold. Meaning that if you had, for example, something where you wanted it to be, because it was a dark uniform, rather the gold be the dominant color and the green be the outline, you can flip things around in terms of those coloring. There's a few versions of it. But at any rate, this is available to you. So a few pieces to go with that logo. One, we have to get every use of it approved from the University Communications Office. So you want to share those with me via email, and I'll send them off and either get it approved or come back and tell you what changes need to be made. I can tell you a couple of the things that are real big. You can't skew or stretch it. You can't, push it together, pull it apart, turn it. It's got to be always in this direction, always got to be horizontal, and the dimensions have to be like you see here. The second thing that's important to know is you can't put anything right by it. So you've got to have a little bit of a clearance around it before you put any other type or club name. The clearance is supposed to be half the height of the F. So if you're using it this size, you would need to skip down at least this much space before you have your next bit of writing. You also can't use it with any clip art. For example, I've seen some, they actually look pretty good, like where maybe you pull off like clip art of like a soccer ball or tennis racket. You can't just drop that in there with the logo. You don't have to use it, by the way. You're totally welcome to say, you know what, I don't want to deal with all these rules. I'm not going to use it. That's perfectly fine. But if you want to use it, you got to follow the rules USF put forth for it. It's also important to know that when you go to use it, it can't be for items for resale. Resale items have to come from an approved vendor that pay a royalty. Well, any use of it has to come from an approved vendor, but there has to be a royalty paid back to USF. When you go to buy merchandise in the bookstore or any store, and you see that little hologram sticker that's usually on the stuff, that hologram is sort of like proof they're giving the kickback to USF for use of the logo. So stuff that's resold has to go through a vendor that has the right to put that little sticker on the things. It's also important to know that USF, now here's where it gets a little bit weird on this. I gotta wait and see. Feel free to test this out, and I'll send it along and we'll see what we get back for a response. But what USF was saying last year, and I haven't heard anything that changed it, is they want you to use a vendor that already has a license unless you're buying something that's very unique, and therefore maybe there isn't a vendor with a license that can make it, then they're gonna be willing to grant someone a temporary license. Meaning that if you just simply want, like say, a t-shirt, you can't go to a company that doesn't have the license. They won't grant them that license. But if you want something that's like, say,
The example from last year with cricket pants, like cricket, so our cricket
Yeah.
uniforms was an example. And that's just one where it is a unique piece to get that from a specific vendor, and that's not something that's carried under like, you know, your general sports authority or BSN or, you know, whoever those approved general vendors are.
So basically one thing I just want to say is, and these rules, by the way, apply with the logo whether we pay or not. It's not about the money. The rules for the logo are true whether you guys are paying with your club's bank account or we're paying with university funds. So give a little extra time on this. Think long and hard about how you want to use it, in what way, and we'll work with you to get through the process. Okay, so just like we just talked about, requests we want 10 for travel is very similar. 10 business days for purchase requests. So that's, once again, 2 weeks. 15 days when we're paying a person that's not an incorporated business. You can't fundraise at A&S Funded Events. That means you can't charge admission for your games. You can't collect money at your games. Money can't change hands. If your games are being held at a venue, this is, by the way, home matches where we're paying for the facility, by the way. Just to make that clear. So that, for example, if you're on the road and the other schools charging admission, that's fine. If you guys, let's say, ice hockey is a good example because they play in, the building up in Wesley Chapel. If they pay the bill to rent the ice and they want to charge admission fees, they can. But if we pay the bill to rent the ice, then they can't charge admission. It's just got to be free. We don't reimburse out-of-pocket expenses. Please don't pay vendors and expect us to pay you back. We pay the vendors directly. So a rule for sports clubs, you can't buy promotional items or food. The requests that you make are going to get approved by Antonio and his staff first in the sports club office, and then by our office. What we're looking for is stuff like student government statutes and USF policy. We're not making a decision of whether or not it's a good idea, bad idea. Honestly, that sort of check comes from Antonio's office, in that if you're the flag football team, you may not want to buy 30 soccer balls. Bad idea. Well, I'm not going to stop. Well, I may stop you for that because that's just dumb. But putting that aside, that's his office's job to stop you for that one. When you make these requests, you got to do a separate request for every vendor. And just a reminder that when items are bought with A&S funds, they're USF property. They've got to be stored on campus or in an approved location. Like, for example, rowing has the boathouse that's off campus, but that's approved. They can't be stored in your house, your garage. They've got to be checked out, checked back in. You're responsible for your inventory. So that means if you're the golf club, if you put one in the lake, you got to go get it. No. There's alligators in there. But who's afraid of an alligator? Okay. Oh, and the examples include the equipment and the uniform. So by the way, I'm never going to buy personal items. Like, I'm going to turn down the request for socks every time because no one wants to wear your socks after you're done with them. So everything I buy in terms of clothing is stuff that has to remain with the club, get checked back in for someone else to check out and wear after you. So this is my glamour shot page. No, I'm just kidding. Although I'm up there. But anyway, so this is just our Bullsync page. Just I want you to know that when you need documents from our office, it's our Bullsync page. Scroll all the way down, documents, they're all there. But one little catch is we have like 14 of them up right now. You only see the first 10 unless you click on View All. So you got to click View All to get to like page 2. Okay, so when you want to make a purchase, you have to go ahead and you have to choose a vendor we can pay. Now here's the good news. For the most part, for sports clubs, it's relatively easy. So we have credit cards that we can do over the phone or online. I do want to point out for Amazon, we do have Prime, so stuff does come quick with free shipping. Amazon's definitely a vendor you guys use a lot. That's always good, but you're welcome to use other online vendors too. But once again, what we can't do is, we can't do a vendor that requires us to go to the store and swipe the card. We just simply don't have enough time in the day when there's like 4 of us doing the purchasing for 400 student organizations. So got to be a phone or online. We can make a department transfer. And in particular here, what we're talking about is campus rec for lifeguard fees. for all of our water-based clubs. There's some other examples too. Let's see. Would they have like guest passes for additional coaching or stuff like that? We can pay that way as well. The lifeguard fees for clubs, like swimming or water polo. Anyone here from water polo? I never figured out how to get the horses in the pool. At any rate, and then the other thing we have is something called a purchase order. A purchase order is for a company that wants to get a check in the mail. Now the check comes 30 days after they deliver the items they're supposed to deliver, so it doesn't result in the quickest of payments. But some companies either don't want the credit card fees or just for whatever reason want a check. We can do those as well. Sir, it's still in my green folder. The alarms would go off if he gets over 100 feet away. Y'all don't know that there's an alarm in every one. It makes a lot of noise. By the way, stealing is a strong word. I really didn't mean steal. I would say borrowing with no intention to return. When you want to go ahead and make a purchase, now we're going to go through the steps to go ahead and do a purchase request. So if you want to follow along in the folder, let me just show you, by the way, too, this really bright fluorescent line, yellowish green. These are checklist pages. Look at the one for non-event, because the event one's like buying food, which doesn't really apply to sports club, but the non-event one, they give you some ideas of the steps to make a purchase request. I already mentioned on this orange one, don't worry about the promo item stuff, but these 10 vendors definitely have the right to make USF licensed merchandise for club use. Plus, there's many more than that, but that's a good starting point. But now this part after that, to the back of the folder. This is the step-by-step process to make the purchase request. You're gonna wanna have this handy when you do purchase requests, whether you have a printed out copy or you just have the online version pulled up and available to look at. Because it's gonna basically say, hey, if you do these steps in this order, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna get it right. So that's important. So it starts with this Excel page. This Excel page starts off with biographical information about your club, information if there really isn't an event for the most part. Events are more for the student organizations. But this purpose of event or project, you've got to fill that out. I get that blank from a lot of sports clubs. Basically, you need to give us just some sort of a quick one-line sentence to explain how you're going to use the item. It's a very simple, generic item. If you're the soccer club and you're buying soccer balls, say equipment needed for practicing games. That's perfectly fine. If you're the soccer club and you want to buy a snow cone machine, I don't know. Don't tell me to make snow cones. That's not going to get approved. But maybe there's, okay, I'm reaching there. But if you're giving me to buy something that's not obvious, I see. Give me 1 second. That's obvious. Tell us how you're going to use the equipment. Yes.
League fees, tournament fees, all through this form.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. All that, with the exception of registration for an exact tournament, that's part of travel. But like an annual dues, a league fees, this form. That's a function of purchasing. This part in here is more about food events. You see, we use this form for everything. So we used to have like 3 different forms out there. We just said, look, we're gonna make it simple. We're gonna put it on one form so that there's questions that won't apply to you. You can skip them. That's perfectly fine. Tell us what vendor you want to use, how we go about reaching them. You've got to itemize what you want to buy. If it's an online purchase, we need a link or item number right in here. Quantity, cost per item, the last column populates itself. So at the end of this, if you don't have access to the fast purchasing system and you want it for your club, grab one of the forms. They're on our BullSync page too. Fill it out. It requires 2 signatures. You plus a second officer sort of approving the fact that you can have the access so no one goes rogue. And with that form, then it'll take us a couple weeks to get you this access. But as soon as you turn that form in, we will start taking purchase requests from you. So getting that form in, we'll take them via email until we give you the access. Yes?
How many fast members can we have?
2 per club. Yep. And by the way, the 2 per club, you're welcome to have more people come to training. Heck, it's fun, right? You want to be here. It's enjoyable. Who wouldn't want to be here on a Sunday afternoon? No, don't groan. Come on now. That's my feelings here. You're hurting me. So to get to fast, your my.usf.edu portal. It's a drop in our business systems here circled in red. The first time you go in, you got to set this thing called dual authentication. It's basically just making sure you are who you say you are. By the way, for that dual authentication, if you're going to use FAST a lot, the app on your phone is by far and away the easiest way to do it, but you don't have to. If you don't want the app, you can set it up to call you, text you. There's other options as well. When you get into FAST, you're going to see a screen that looks like this, except you won't necessarily have all these boxes. You get boxes based on your needs. So you're going to have some version of these boxes. You'll have the purchasing one, but it won't necessarily be in that spot. It'll probably be up, a little bit higher. But click on purchasing. And you got to go to requisitions and add a new requisition. So you've got to click add for a requisition. Takes you to this screen here. Name of the event can just simply be a quick breakdown of what you're doing. So it can be women's rugby league dues, fencing equipment, whatever the case may be. Anyone here from fencing? Oh wow, okay, we got fencing in the house. I never understood how you make a sport out of selling stolen TVs. Y'all don't know that term? Like if you're fencing TVs out of the back of a van down the street? Never mind. You're all too young. Anyway, gotta click on add comments. Takes you to this screen right here. You've got this comment box. So this is a couple things for you. First of all, this is the screen you make your attachments. So every purchase request is going to have at least one attachment. That Excel page we just saw. Click attach, you upload it. If you get an error message, it's because your file name is too long. FAST hates long file names, so you got to shorten it up. Let's say you have more than one attachment. Maybe you've got a quote from the vendor. Maybe you have artwork, because it's going to be uniforms. That little plus button up there gives you more attachment or more comments. Each new comment gives you a new attachment. So where it says 1 of 1 can become 1 of 2, 1 of 3. They can let you go up to 99 comments, 99 attachments. If you need more than that, give me at least a little advance warning so I can quit before I have to work it. But in all seriousness, use as many as you need, but usually you won't need more than 2 or 3. In each comment box, you can do there's two things. First thing, tell us what the attachment is with that comment. So if it's your purchasing form, type in purchasing form so we know what's on that page. The second thing is, if you have any notes you want to send me, it'll help me make the purchase. Maybe it's use the code, if it's an online purchase, maybe you got a promo code, that'll help use it. A lot of times, like Kendo, for example, has a lot of gear where when you go to order it, they ask you a lot of questions. And they use a lot of words I don't know in those questions. So giving me the answers to those questions, I'm not even going to try and tell them to you because I get them all mispronounced and I just like a fool. But in all seriousness, if you ever want to get a real experience, try to order Kendo here. It's fun. But at any rate, you can also just say, hey, Mike, hope you're having a good day. No one ever does that. But anything you put here, I'm going to see. Once you get them in there, click on OK in the bottom left-hand corner. Back to the main screen. Click Requisition Defaults. Takes you to this screen here. You've got this box marked Supplier. So this is the reason you don't want to try this without having either that packet that's in front of you, either as a printout or online available. Because this is the step you don't want to memorize. In the box marked Supplier, add that totally random number. It's 609781. That number, just in case if you're like me and you like to know why you're doing something, that number represents USF student government. Basically, this system's used all over campus. It helps route your request to our office. So what you don't want to do in this case is to try to find the actual supplier and plug it in that box. You don't want to try to hit the search function and find Amazon and put it in. Because then we're never going to work your request and we're never going to buy what you want. So just plug in that number into that box, hit OK. Takes you back to the main screen. Got to fill out this bottom line. Description, you won't have a date necessarily for an event, so you can skip that. Give us the name of the vendor, a comma, the full name of your student organization. By the way, as a quick heads up, your student clubs, for all of you, whatever your name is how it appears in BullSync. And one of the hints I'm going to tell you is it never has USF in front of it. Okay, in my regular trainings, my example I always go to is French Club at USF, USF Fringe Club. Only one of those three is correct. Well, that's true of all of your clubs too. You have one correct name. So if you're ever asking us to buy not promo items, but equipment, jerseys, and you want it customized, the name has to be correct, yes.
So we have like soccer clubs, women's in parentheses, do we have to put the women's?
I honestly don't care. Do you care?
We're talking about just for like.
For like a club like soccer, do they have to identify men or women if it just says soccer club? The fact that you're wearing it versus me wearing it will identify that it's women's. And if I'm wearing it, it identifies we're not very competitive. At any rate, but yeah, I don't care about the women's men's part. Here's what I know that USF cares about. They don't want USF out in front of your name because that implies ownership by the university, and they're scared you guys are going to go crazy and like destroy stuff, and so they don't want to be held responsible. So they make you put either no USF or at USF at the end.
So, and I will add on to that, so especially with all the new logo things that have been going around, we had a lot of random logos and things where the university, finally, that's what kind of pushed that whole poll that no one liked. Now we're back to you. With that being said, all of your social media pages, all the things that you may have, items along that nature, make sure that it is following the regulation with what Mike is saying, because there is an opportunity for the university to come after you and say, you need to change all of your stuff. So if you know that you have these things sitting around somewhere, odds are probably just need to go get rid of it or update it.
And that's just if we use the logo they're okaying, right? So if we just did our own poll for like some tournament that we wanted to do and it had nothing to do with the actual logo you guys are permitting.
Any time that you put USF in front of whatever your club name is, it's not gonna go well,
Okay.
right? Always after.
But for example, women's soccer club at USF is okay,
Okay.
or soccer club at USF, or just soccer club or soccer.
Yeah, but like
or
for your
club.
example, for like an event, it can't say USF soccer club. You know, whatever it is.
So interesting.
Yeah, the USF has to come at the end is at USF.
Yes.
Yes.
Can we like draw a bull that's not the logo or anything and have that on there? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me. You're good, right?
Yeah, so from our standpoint, we still have to, so any logo still has to get approved by the university, even if it's your own thing. So we still have to get, but if it is completely removed away and it doesn't use that USF, it is much easier to get approved.
But I'll tell you, like for example, USF will like say no if you try to use the Chicago Bulls logo, you know, and they'll also say no if you try to use an out-of-date USF logo. Like you can't go back and use Robo Goat or Elsie the Cow or those are what I call the logos, old logos. Y'all are once again way too young. I've been at USF since 1993, so you all were probably what 10, 11 back. Never mind.
So I have another question. I'm sorry. This is a past warm-up jersey that we have. USF Club Soccer. That didn't come from our
No,
year.
no. Okay. So that see that's different. So I can tell you. Go ahead, keep standing.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
so the fact is, you have the logo and then you have Club Soccer.
Okay.
I don't think that where the problem would be on that second line is if it said USF Club Soccer all in the same font in that line.
So it still followed the half F below.
Right. So that part, that's where that's out of compliance from what I can see.
Oh.
Is the fact that there's not enough gap between the logo and where it says Club Soccer. But don't worry. I mean,
It's
You're
a
fine
past,
Listen.
It's a past year, so I mean.
they're going to have you through arraignment in about 30 minutes. Call your lawyer. They'll get no. Yeah, I'm not. I'm never going to police stuff that's already made because, well, that's just it shortened my life exponentially if I did. But that would not get approved going forward because the gap between the logo and the Club Soccer part is not big enough. But that's the only problem there. The fact that the logo says USF, then it says Club Soccer is not an issue in my eyes, but I'm not the approver either.
Okay, the only other thing is because this vendor, in past years, before we took over it all, the girls had set up some club store, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pridewear was what it was. And they were producing these and we were getting them through a separate vendor that we weren't reporting here because we were buying it out
Yeah.
of pocket. Is that different? Does that
All the
make
rules
it-
still apply. Yeah, the rules for the logo usage still apply because the university basically considers the logo like their property, they want to protect it. So the rules, doesn't matter where the money comes from, the rules, the logo is always the rules below.
And that's, so we can chat afterwards, I know you all have a lot of questions, and that's.
Sorry.
No, it's okay, and it's okay, and I know some of those are specific to the soccer, like the transition piece.
Yeah.
Just in general, the reason why I mentioned it is just to make sure everyone's aware that the university is on that heightened sense of awareness regarding logos.
Okay.
And they come directly to us, which means that we go directly to you all. Cool.
And by the way, for those of you that don't know, the model was previously sporting the Under Armour Women's Club Soccer. I'm sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot. Under Armour is the old university supplier. You're still welcome to use them. There's no requirement you change to Adidas. But USF still has a policy that you cannot put a USF logo on a Nike piece of gear. So, and the reason is they refused to sign an agreement saying they wouldn't use child labor. So USF, in a social awareness, because they would not sign this document, forbids USF logos on Nike items. They're still out there in existence because they didn't always forbid it, but it can't be made going forward. So if your team, for example, has old uniforms in their Nike, that's fine, keep wearing them, you don't have to burn them. But you can't make any new, you can't make replacements. So like if you're a team, like say that someone like, you know, a jersey got ripped or torn, you would have to replace it with another brand. So that's just one thing to keep a note of.
Is that just Nike?
Just Nike is all I know of, yeah. And I mean, they probably didn't go through every single thing, but of the big ones, they said, you know, because when Nike applied to, because, you know, for example, okay, Adidas has the exclusive deal to make stuff for, like, say, the NCAA teams. But that doesn't mean there can't be, like, Under Armour. Actually, Adidas has that, I said that wrong. But that doesn't mean other companies can't make stuff to, like, sell in, like, say, you know, Sports Fanatic. But they turned down all the Nike requests because Nike wouldn't sign agreements saying they wouldn't use child labor. Okay, stay with me. I promise we're getting to the end. So back to FAST. You got to fill out this bottom line right across the bottom. Description. Vendor name, name of the organization. Quantity, always just the number 1, always. UOM stands for unit of measure. It's always the word lot. Category is always student events. Price is just whatever number came from the bottom of your Excel page. This becomes the first moment you can hit save. When you hit save, you get a requisition ID number. We put on here, save it, remember it, really you don't have to, but just that means that things are going good. You have not submitted your work, you've just simply saved it at this moment. In fact, click on that green check mark in the upper right. That green check mark takes it from just simply being saved to submitted to our office for consideration. The word status, where it says open, open will change to pending. Pending means we got it. Sometimes things don't go perfect. Office sends out a modification email. The one thing I'm going to note on here, well, there's 2 things. One, just simply respond to the email. We're going to tell you what's wrong, what we need, reply to it. The second part, we're going to always copy this cst-asbo@usf.edu email address. This is our purchasing group box. These emails come from our student workers a lot. They don't work every day. When you reply to it, reply to all, so you copy that box coming back to us. What that'll mean is if the person that sent you the email is not in that particular day, someone else will jump in and help you. You don't have to wait for them to come back. That's going to be true of all those emails we send you. Just be sure to hit reply to all as opposed to just a single reply. And of course, answer the question that's in there. You know, because even to me, you know, I do work most days, but you never know. I could get hit by a bus going home and never come back, or I could win Powerball and really never come back. Question? No, okay. So then, if things go right, we send you out an approval email. But honestly, I gotta tell you, for sports clubs, I don't send these very often in this format. And the reason I don't is, so many of your purchases are just simply online purchases, so I'll just make the purchase and send you the confirmation it's done, as opposed to this. Because this email is basically the set of directions of what you have to do next. But if it's like an Amazon purchase, there's really no next direction for you. So I'll just take care of it and send you the confirmation it's done. So this screen really hardly ever applies to sports clubs, but it could. So we do need to get receipts back at the end of your purchases. And there may be an occasion where you're working with a vendor, maybe it's a local vendor and you pick up your items, and when you pick them up, the receipt comes. So just know, bless you, that the receipt definitely has to get back to our office. within 1 business day of the purchase being made. The good news is, once again, for sports clubs, you may go all year and never have to do this. But just know that I may come back to you in an email and say, you need to get me the receipt because the vendor didn't provide it to me. So just know that's out there. And by the way, you can always email those receipts in or bring them to our office. So I just want to mention, there are a few resources out there that may help your clubs along the year. USF Student Government has grants. And in particular, there's 2 of them that could apply to you. I believe there's no restriction to asking for a homecoming grant. Homecoming grant is if you want to be part of USF homecoming and do some school-spirited stuff. Like, for example, you want to be in the parade and you want to get a handful of beads and throw them really hard at people you don't like. No, wait, don't do that. I'm being recorded. Darn it, why am I? Until you're supposed to stop me before I say things that are a crime. At any rate, don't hurt people. Get that, recorder? Okay, but in all seriousness, you can ask to do things during homecoming weeks like being in the parade and get supplies and stuff like that. You get extra money for it. That money's separate from your budget. You might as well ask. By the way, the applications are going to be out, I believe, the end of this week, and the deadline is early September, so it's coming up quick. But just know that's an option for you if you want to ask for it. If for whatever reason you need to get together as a team and you want to use a room in this building because maybe Campus Rec doesn't have what you need, you can ask for room reservations free of charge from the Marshall Center. We do have stuff you can check out. Stuff like pop-up tents, coolers, giant Jenga, cornhole. You guys are welcome as A&S funded organizations to check those items out. The tents and coolers can be for your competitions. The giant Jenga and cornhole can be just because. That's fine. You're welcome to check them out. The student government has given the Oracle funding to let you advertise events for free. You can advertise games you want people to come to. Maybe you can advertise to try to get more members, more people, go to tryouts. You get 4 free ads in the fall, 4 free in the spring, 2 in the summer. They're little itty bitty ads. You can make them together and make Megatron ad if you want, so you can combine them. Might as well take advantage of it. It's a free opportunity for you. The one thing that's not up here that I'll just mention briefly too. So in this building, there's a print shop. Who else used the print shop before a few hands. So the print shop used to be a company called Ricoh. Ricoh, I don't know, end of July decided they didn't want to deal with USF anymore because there was a legal dispute over something at a much higher level. So they packed up shop and left. They got replaced by ProCopy, that I believe opened 3 days ago for the first time. So ProCopy is going to have a location in the building. As of this moment, there's no funding for extra printing right now, but I highly anticipate that'll change in the very near future, maybe within a week or so. There's got to be meetings to set it up and all, but student government's intention is to provide the new print shop money that allow all student organizations to have a printing allocation on top of your budgets. So you can print out flyers for your events, flyers to get people to come to tryouts, posters. If depending on what ProCopy's capabilities are, maybe even like a tablecloth for Bull Market if you want to have like a nice professional looking tablecloth, signs, banners, stuff like that. Yes.
Will we be able to get posters laminated like starting Monday for our clubs?
Well, no, definitely not starting Monday because the meeting to discuss how to deal with it is Tuesday. So I definitely know not Monday. But I can tell you that student government's intention is to resume this funding. And I can tell you that I'm sure ProCopy wants it because it's actually $90,000 of free business for them. So there's no reason why it won't happen, but I can't tell you the date it'll kick in. So in the short term, it's not there, but it'll be there soon. By the way, when you become a financial officer, we put you on an email database. And we like to send out 3 emails a day to check on you, morning, noon, and night. No, okay. We send about 10 a year. We don't flood you with emails coming from our office, usually coming from me directly. Not because I'm important, because I know I would have figured out how to do it. So at any rate, just know that those emails will come and we'll give you things like deadlines, stuff like that. It'll keep you informed of stuff going on throughout the year. I'm going to tell you one big change that's coming that we have not yet announced via email, but it's coming out soon. So every year, student government looks at their statutes and makes updates and changes. And they made a big one this year that'll affect how the end of the year goes. They have said that for the last 2 months of the fiscal year, so that's June and May, the most you can spend on non-travel and non-event, but event doesn't apply to sports clubs, is $500. So your travel's fine, it impacts zero impact on travel. But what that means is all that end of the year use up your budget spending, you're gonna have to do a lot of it earlier. And just the last little fine tuning bits in those last 2 months. Because if you get to May 1st and you have no more travel to go, and you have $1,000 left in the budget, and you have not put in a purchase request to spend on it, you're gonna lose $500 right there, because the most you can ask to spend from May 1st on for non-travel is $500. This is not gonna be a surprise, we're not gonna let it sneak up on anyone, we're gonna get the word out, we're gonna say it over and over, but it's geared so that, basically the idea behind this, and it's not necessarily a sports club thing, but it affects all clubs equally, is that there are clubs out there that do nothing all year long and then try to spend their entire budget in the middle of June. And student government says, well, that's not really why they were funded. We don't want them, we want them to have a presence and spend their money throughout the year. So that they don't want you to back in and hold all these purchases until the end of the year, because then you're not spending the money for the good of students throughout the year. So we're gonna keep you informed on that one, but just know that's a big one that's gonna impact you all, a pretty big amount. But like I said, no impact on travel, none whatsoever. You don't have to change any travel dates. Travel's perfectly fine. So, on time, I might add. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna wrap this up. And I definitely, by the way, will stick around and take questions as long as needed. Now, there's 2 things we gotta do. Well, first off, I just wanna tell you once again, we would rather answer questions than solve problems. You can walk in our door Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 5, and see us. You can call us. You can email us. If you own a time machine, you can travel back to 1984 and you can fax us. But we're here to help. So reach out to us.